Hello. Thank you all for joining. We still have attendees who are joining in, and we will just start off in a minute. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining the webinar. Today, we will be discussing on being a successful insight-driven organization. We have Boris from Forrester as a guest speaker, and Sanjay and Senthil from Marlabs. We'll be sharing the recording at the end of the webinar. Please do direct your questions to the organizers during the webinar, and we will be taking them up during the Q&A session. I will now hand this over to Boris. Boris, over to you.
Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let me just share the presentation. And I just did that. So can you please confirm that everyone can see my title slide on the GoToMeeting?
Yes, we can, Boris.
All right, excellent. So once again, it's my pleasure to speak today about transforming your probably already data-driven business to insights-driven business and organization. So let's dissect what I just said for the next few minutes. So we do see the next kind of company that has emerged over the last couple of years, and it's a big trend that we see for the next few years. And we call these new types of companies insights-driven businesses. Why is it important to be an insight-driven business? Well, because as you can see from this slide, we and some other analysts and researchers are predicting that insight-driven businesses are going to grow 8 to 10 times faster than competition. So that, pay attention to this word. It's not 8 to 10% faster. It's 8 to 10 times faster. That's a significant difference. And as a result, we are predicting that these companies are going to take $1.8 trillion of dollars away from competition. So if you subscribe to this trend, then obviously you want to be on the insights-driven business side, not the other one. We've got lots of proof that this is happening already. So when we measure our clients, our surveyees, whether they are beginner or advanced in their insight-driven capabilities. So advanced companies are 178 times more likely to grow their revenue based on their systems of insight, on their analytics. They are 2.5 times more likely to grow their revenue at a very fast pace, at 20% or more. And they are 240% more likely to create sustainable competitive advantage for their business, not just based on their product, on the quality and price of their products and services, but based on business intelligence, analytics, and the next generation of that, what we call systems of insight. So what are the key differences between data-driven companies? And I think most of you, especially those who work for a mid-size and the upper end of mid-size, and definitely all large enterprises and all large organizations are already data-driven. You already have some kind of an analytical data management infrastructure. Probably most of you have data warehouses and data marts, and many of you are investing in data lakes. And I can bet my career that most of you have more than one business intelligence and analytical tools at your disposal. So most of you are transforming raw data into signals, but are you really acting on those signals, and are those actions producing tangible business outcomes, and are those business outcomes really positive? Are they positively affecting your top and bottom line? So that's the difference that we draw between older gen data-driven organizations and newer generation insights-driven organizations. So with that in mind, just to differentiate between the two, we now use this term systems of insight. The acronym is SOI. Just to distinguish the older way of doing things and the newer way of doing things. So throughout the presentation, I will be using the terms business intelligence and analytics and systems of insight almost interchangeably. So what are some of the other key differences between BI and SOI? Well, both have to be agile. Agility today is not negotiable. All of us know how to build a robust analytical application in months, and we all know how to make an update to it in weeks. But can we build it in weeks, and can we update it based on the latest regulations, latest trends in days? That's the real challenge. I will spend a couple of moments talking about that. So agility today is not negotiable. It's one of the main pillars of successful BI and analytical applications. But where we also start drawing some lines is that BI as a standalone application is not contextual. It does not really understand the context of a business process that you're currently working on. It's not actually actionable because, yes, you can get a nice dashboard that's flashing a red light that your customer campaign is not performing well or your inventory is low, but you got to go somewhere else to take a corrective action. And none of the, or very few, even of the modern BI and analytics applications are self-learning and improving. In order to close these gaps, in order to make business intelligence contextual, actionable, and self-learning, you have to embed it into everyday operational applications and processes. So once you start embedding analytical functionality into your ERP and CRM and even Office applications such as email and calendar, that's how your BI is going to be transformed to systems of insight, which is going to be pervasive. So embedded analytics makes pervasive analytics. Very, very important trend that we've uncovered over the last few years. So this is no longer a nice to have. We're no longer talking about business intelligence, analytics, and systems of insight just as a nice to have back office application that's used to produce intangible benefits such as improved decision making. No, modern systems of insight usage drivers are very tangible. This is about reducing costs and growing revenue and improving your products and creating sustainable competitive adjustments. So something, all of these drivers are directly affecting your top and bottom line. And I know one of the topics you wanted to hear about from today's webinar, because obviously this topic is all over the place, is artificial intelligence. So what role does artificial intelligence play in this space? Well, AI can be used to enhance your existing business intelligence and analytics capabilities. I don't see AI as a separate capability. It really needs to be embedded in your everyday analytical applications. And basically what AI does, it makes your existing analytical applications more effective and efficient. It improves your business automation. It improves efficiencies of your IT operations. It improves, this is the third bar here is exactly what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes. It improves your data and insights and analytics platform. So AI is playing a very key role here. But before we get to AI, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about business agility. Why are we paying so much attention and putting such emphasis on business agility? Well, it's the following. Start at the top of this chart. We are today in the age of a customer. What does that mean? It means that you, as a provider of products and services, have a very little capability to make your customers sticky. Customers today, unlike a decade ago, are empowered with mobile devices, and they are all connected to everything via cloud. And therefore, if there is a better or even the same but more timely product and service available from your competition, switching from you to your competitor is literally a single click on their mobile device. So therefore, the second point on this chart is that this age of a customer requires very agile business models. You really need to be able to react on a dime, and therefore even weeks development cycles in Bi and Analytics are no longer good enough. You really need to be able to react to customers' needs and ever-changing tastes and preferences and alliances to brands literally within hours, if not minutes. So therefore, our analytics and business intelligence and systems of insight really have to be agile. So we have some interesting proof that business agility is correlated to overall business success. So if you look at all of the points on these charts, and my apologies for not providing a legend, I'll describe a couple of them. So these are attributes of what does it mean for a business to be agile. So for example, CI stands for channel integration, right? So it makes common sense. If your channels are integrated, you are more agile. You can respond to your customer demands much quicker. IE stands for infrastructure elasticity. If your infrastructure is elastic, obviously you can adjust it to customer demand much quicker. So as you forgive me, as you can see on this chart, the high-performing businesses, remember from a few slides ago, those are the businesses that are growing faster than industry averages. So they are represented on the right side of this chart. And basically, when we surveyed them, they told us that yes, they are aware that a business agility is key to their success, and they execute well. And as you can see, they are all over what we call the formidable category. Yes, they are aware, and they can execute well on this. Versus on the left side, industry laggards, lower performers are all over what we call clueless, dangerous, and paralyzed categories. They're either not aware or that this is important, or they are not executing well, or as we call them, clueless, they are not aware and they're not executing on this. So obviously, needless to say, before we get to technology, we do need to acknowledge that the success for insights-driven business is not just in technology, it's people, process, and data, and kind of all tied together by a holistic strategy. But technology is the fun part. This is what we want to talk about today. I will spend a few minutes at the tail end of my presentation on people and process, but let's not talk about fun stuff. So recently, we published 3 documents where we talked about modernizing your business intelligence and analytical infrastructure so that you can take your BI to the next level and make it morph into systems of insight. So we wrote extensively about modernizing your data architecture. How do you start supplementing data warehouses with data lakes? How do you start analyzing data outside of your data warehouses? We wrote extensively about moving BI to the cloud, because migration to the cloud is a question of when, not if. But today we're going to do a lightly deeper dive into how do you modernize your business intelligence tools. And one way to modernize your BI tools is by infusing machine learning and cognitive computing and other AI functionality into them. Taking a step back and then just getting on the same page with everyone is that AI, in Forrester's opinion, is not a single technology. It's not a single capability. As you can see on the slide in front of you from our recent research, we track about 14 different capabilities, 14 different market subsegments within AI at different levels of maturity and business value. So this is how we segment the market. If it's a kind of a nascent technology with low maturity, unproven business value. We say experiment with that technology. If it's grown to become high business value but still an evolving technology, we say you need to invest in it. If it's both high value and high maturity, we say maintain it. And maintain does not mean no net new investments. Obviously, if you haven't invested in these technologies, you better move fast. And anything that's high business, that's low business value and high maturity, we recommend divesting. But AI is such a new, technology that we haven't found anything that's in a divest category. So take a look at unstructured data analytics here, for example. As you can see, in an experiment category, speech analytics, definitely a popular capability, but still at a low maturity stage. So we put it in the experiment stage. But a natural language understanding has already proven itself, so it's high business value. We put it in the invest category, and then text analytics, which is kind of at the base of both speech analytics and natural language understanding. That technology has been around for at least a decade or more, so we put that in a maintain category. So that's kind of how you should be leveraging this research. So for the next a few minutes, let's do a deeper dive into specifically what we want to talk about today, which is how do you enhance your existing or even new BI and analytics platforms with artificial intelligence. The good news is that this is not on a roadmap. This is here today. This is what my colleagues from Marlabs are going to talk about in a few minutes. So the supply of these platforms is already there. So we indeed track most of the leading business intelligence and analytics platforms already infuse themselves with a healthy dose of AI and machine learning. The demand is still has room to grow, and that's the purpose of this webinar, so that all of you who are listening in can take advantage of this. So let's dissect what does it mean for a BI or an analytics platform to have an infusion of AI. So let's start with from the bottom of so-called architectural stack of all of the business intelligence and analytics platforms, right? So we start with data management in the era of data lakes and petabytes of data and lots and lots of unmodeled, unstructured files. It is close to impossible to integrate and curate all of that data manually. So manual ETL processes that feed your data warehouses, we see the limitation somewhere around 20 or 30%. So on average, we do see a large organization processing only about 20 or 30% of their data into data warehouse and analytical systems. But if you are using machine learning algorithms that can scan your data lake files and that can identify primary foreign keys, that can automatically enrich the metadata, automatically create what we at Forrester call machine learning based data catalogs, then you can start analyzing more than 20 or 30% of your data. Data preparation falls into the same category. There is absolutely no way, again, in a large, complex, global, heterogeneous enterprise that sells thousands of different products, and those products have, literally millions of attributes. If you think about large retailers like Walmart, for example, right? Think about the number of attributes of all of the millions SKUs that they sell. So we're talking about many millions of product attributes, and there's just no way you can create a rule for cleansing data for every single one of those permutations. So machine learning algorithm that can, with a 99, let's say, % accuracy, predict a missing value or identify an incorrectly spelled value, that's really the way to go to be able to clean up your data, get closer to the single version of the truth and get closer to total data quality. Different types of user interfaces beyond just visual querying beyond point and click is something that we are beginning to observe. I know this is something my colleagues from Marlabs are going to talk about, because what we found over the years is, yes, absolutely, the old saying, picture is worth 1,000 words, still stays, but it means a lot for typically data professionals, for analysts, people who are already familiar with how to interpret charts and trend lines and how to look at scales and labels. But to an average end user, non-data professional, salespeople, doctors, tellers, and banks who are not data professionals, just asking a question and getting an answer, that explains why that answer was generated is really a way to go. That's the way you can broaden the reach of analytics across your entire enterprise, not just for data professionals. Advanced analytics, as you know, have been for decades the realm of professional data scientists, people with advanced degrees who would write code in Python and R and other analytical tools, and that really limited the adoption because data science resources are scarce. They're hard to find. They are expensive. So can you empower your citizen data scientists with what we call point and click predictive models, where you as a non-data science professional are looking, let's say, at a trend line, a historical trend line, and with a single click, you can just say, well, predict, based on a historical trend and based on the following variables, can you predict that trend line for the next 12 months? Right, so that's what modern BI applications do. And a very important capability, what I'm calling here knowledge gaps, which is all about I don't know what I don't know. Right, it's very interesting, and not too many people realize this and accept this. Is that 4 things have to happen in a complex process of BI and analytics in order for the system to be effective and efficient. That you have to have the right data. You have to model that data correctly. You have to ask your question correctly. And last but not least, you have to ask that question in the first place. So if any of those 4 steps, 4 processes break down somewhere, then your system fails. So can you use machine learning algorithm to constantly scan your data, your raw data, right, your unmodeled data, unstructured data, and see, whether they identify trends, reversal of trends, correlations, a root cause, causality dependency, clusters with outliers and anomalies, etc., and just alert you to that fact. So it's a very, very powerful capability that AI brings to BI and analytical platforms. And last but not least, with the infusion of machine learning capability into what used to be the realm of only structured data analytics, we now see more and more platforms being able to analyze unstructured data. Again, we're not advocating that full-blown text analytics or content analytics is a capability that BI and analytical tools have, but more and more data in your data lakes is unstructured. So, for example, customer communications, right, from social media, from contact center communications, from emails from customers are all unstructured. So can you derive key entities and concepts and sentiment and intent from those unstructured text columns is a great capability. There are a lot of questions that come up on whether you should be using kind of a BI platforms that are mostly rules-based versus machine learning, standalone machine learning platforms. Well, the answer, the simple answer to that, what if you had a platform like what Marlabs is going to talk about that does both, right? Wouldn't that be nice? But in the current world, in a lot of cases, these platforms are still somewhat separate, and therefore we do recommend that you use both of them. because while machine learning platforms are great at authoring and customizing and finally tuning the models, they're not really designed to distribute these models, to make them embedded and pervasive. That's the realm of business intelligence tools. And therefore, here are some of the examples in terms of which tool do you use to author or customize models versus which tools do you use to democratize or enrich the models with visualization and slice and dice model results. So in a lot of cases, you'll still need to use separate platforms, but in some cases, modern platforms are actually allowing you to do both. A very interesting point about the some of the barriers that our clients are telling us. Well, we're not really deploying AI because we don't really have the skills, because the technology is not mature yet, because of where we're not really sure what the ROI is. But when you think about using AI as part of your existing business intelligence analytics platform, a lot of these concerns go away. So this is definitely one of our top recommendations. Before you start heavily investing in AI as a separate capability, invest in BI tools that just have AI capabilities embedded in them. And as a matter of fact, as you can see, that's really the trend. So while we are seeing an increase in clients that are steadily building their own AI capabilities, but the majority is purchasing commercially available AI components that come embedded with their analytical and other applications. So that was the fun part, but obviously, hopefully, all of you on the phone know that technology is only one part of the equation. I'm sure you've seen this slide and this quote many times. Everybody's got data, but not everyone has insights. And indeed, most of our clients, most of the respondents are still reporting or self-assessing themselves as a beginner in this insights-driven journey. Only 8% assess themselves as advanced. And obviously, we know it's not about technology. Technology today is very mature. It's really all about people and processes. And indeed, the top usage barriers to become an insight-driven organization is people and process. It's building the team, it's assembling the right team, it's creating the right processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, this is obviously a very, very, very long discussion. Probably I could take about processes and organizational structures that need to surround BI and analytics and systems of insight. But let's do a dive into one of the topics. And one of the topics is, how do you balance? Remember, we talked about agility at the beginning. This is very important. One of the unfortunate implications of agility is that it really needs to be balanced with control and governance, right? Because one way that we can oversimplify this, and to achieve a high degree of agility, we can say, well, you know what? With modern BI tools, I can empower all of my end users to self-author most of the BI and analytical content, and therefore this is the ultimate in agility. They never need to wait for us IT or data professionals. Well, that's great, except if we do that, we're going to have what we call data anarchy, right? Where people are running around creating different reports that provide different answers to the same question. So, the multi-million dollar question is, how do you find that finely tuned balance between, what professionals need to do and what end users need to do? How do we find that? A fine balance between agility and control and governance. And we call that world, that practice, we call that BI governance. And as a matter of fact, BI governance becomes infinitely more important in the world of AI. I'll talk about that in a second. So what is BI governance? BI governance is distinct a net separate, obviously integrated, but still distinct component from data governance. Data governance is all about rules and regulations, assigning roles and responsibilities, who can do what when. BI governance is really all about monitoring and adjusting. So in BI governance, we identify 5 steps, and this is really, these 5 steps are indeed, how do you close the gap between agility and control, and how do you walk that fine line between agility and control. So everything that end users do in their models, in their modern self-service BI environment, we want to encourage that, but we want to monitor and inform and take corrective actions, right? So everything that business users do, we want to monitor that. We want to look at the usage logs, and basically we want to run BI by the numbers, right? You always try to instill the discipline into your business colleagues of running their business, finance, sales, marketing by the numbers. Ask yourself, look inside of your organization and ask yourself, do you really run BI and analytics by the numbers, right? So this is what I'm talking about. Monitor what everyone is doing, and create certain metrics that will let you measure kind of the criticality of self-procured, self-authored BI applications, inform all of the key stakeholders, and by the way, that's the role of your BI and analytics COE. A lot of people ask me and Forrester, what does BI COE do? Well, that's exactly what it does. It monitors usage and authorship by end users. It informs all of the key stakeholders, and then you make some decisions. If you find 2 overlapping inconsistent reports, well, you fix it. If you find that an end user created what walks and talks and looks and feels and smells like a mission critical application, well, then you harden it, you architect it, and you lock it down, and you put it into production. This, by the way, is what it may look like. So in the old days, when we needed to create a mission critical application, we would do it by the numbers. We would take lots of steps to identify requirements. We would extract the data into data warehouses. We would normalize the data. We would go through the cleansing exercise, and then finally we would populate dashboard and reports. And that's all great, except it takes too long, right? And in the modern world, as I said a number of times, it's just not enough time to do that. So in the new world, we say, you know what, the very first step can be done with rubber band and scotch tape. So go to whatever data source you want to analyze, run a report there, export that report to a CSV file, and load that file into your BI application, and let the end user become productive day one, so they can quote unquote playing with that application. After you apply the BI governance best practices that I talked about, and you notice that this is becoming a more stable, more widely used application, then you wrap that spreadsheet with some kind of a semantic layer that your BI tool has, and you can now deploy that process to more people. And after a few weeks, you may have noticed that this has become, somewhat behaving like a mission critical application. Well, then you drop that spreadsheet exporting process, and you point the semantic layer directly to data sources. So now you can deploy it to even more people. And as a last step, you do all of the right things. You export the data, or you virtualize the data from the data sources. You create a physical or a virtual data lake or a data warehouse, and you basically have flip the switch and have the BI tool query that repository. So you just basically achieved several very important objectives. You made the end user very happy on day one, and on day, let's say, 31, you made your CIO and your chief data officer very happy, because you're now running that process as a lockdown mission critical process. So that's kind of in a nutshell the process of BI governance. So when you govern AI based applications, you need to pay attention to a few other things that warned the realm of earlier generation BI apps. AI and especially machine learning requires training data in a supervised machine learning environment. Things don't happen magically. Somebody needs to identify a data set to train, and all of the variables, target variables, and dependent variables that need to be kind of labeled. So who provides that training data? How is it stored? How is it versioned? If you need to repeat, replicate the results of your training process, but the original training data is gone, then you're stuck with a dilemma. Sometimes recommendations that machine learning provides. Obviously, I don't like to use the term biased because empirically, machine learning based on data cannot be biased. It's telling you what the data actually has hidden in it. But from the business point of view, it can indeed be not just biased, but it may not just make business sense. So it's almost like you need to govern the outcome of the machine learning models to make sure that they are making business sense, that they are kind of supporting your business strategy and business policies and business rules, and that obviously that all of these recommendations are not biased and they are not violating any of the ethics code. So in conclusion, I want to leave you with this impression. I get a lot of questions asked from my clients, from my audience. Is AI replacing BI? No, it's not. But BI tools that are going to enrich its functionality with AI are definitely going to replace BI tools that are still mostly rules-based. So that is definitely happen. So in order for you to get started, yes, technology is great, but as we say, governance process still remains. It's garbage in, garbage out. AI does not help with that. So continue invest in governance processes. Make sure that your governance accounts for all of the rules that need to wrap machine learning models and recommendations to make sure that models are predicting and recommending what makes sense. And needless to say, to fine tune the models and to customize the models, you're still going to rely on data science talent. So the platforms that I talked about and what Marlabs is going to talk about will definitely reduce your reliance on data science professionals, but it's not going to eliminate it completely. And what we are recommending is, not kind of thinking of AI as a separate capability. You leverage AI as something that's infused throughout all of your platforms and applications, and definitely give some prioritization to AI capabilities of pre-integrated solutions versus doing some of your custom integration. Custom integration may and potentially should come later, but start investing in solutions that already have AI. So this is all I had. I'm going to stick around for the Q&A session, but at this point, Sanjay from Marlabs, let me turn this over to you.
Thank you, Boris. So hopefully everyone will be able to see my presentation, if you will. And why don't we go ahead and get started. So as we've heard from Boris, insights obviously are very beneficial to enterprises, whether you're a business leader or a technology leader. And the road to achieving these insights, while they may appear long, they are riddled with gaps in data and analytics, more of a centralized set of operations, and a scarcity of data science expertise. As it pertains specifically to the journey to insights, as many of us are aware, it consists of a variety of stages that are complex, There are interdependencies. It requires expertise at each stage. Typically, when we look at addressing analytics use cases through machine learning, it could take anywhere between, if you will, 7 weeks to 13 weeks for an implementation. And as we're also seeing towards from a left to right sort of a positioning, understanding, processing, the pre-processing and preparation of data does take a significant amount of that 7 to 13 weeks. So where does augmented intelligence, where does that fit? Well, these insights are achievable, if you will, through augmented intelligence, where machine learning is applied to data processing, modeling, and it helps accelerate the journey so that the outcomes are achievable faster. Using AI and machine learning techniques, obviously humans are able to analyze data at scale. We're able to enhance the quality of insights, present the insights really more in an intuitive manner. And the ability, if you will, to extract these insights, any sort of orchestration, the complex rules, technologies, it really enables the ability for us to reason using augmented intelligence, using natural language generation. Because obviously at the end of the day, it is about, it's about the data and it's about the insights that are being gained from the data. Some of the technologies that actually enable augmented intelligence, the constituents are primarily centered around data preparation, visualization of the data, associations, if you will, that are between the data, recommendations. So recommendations would be similar to, if you will, a recommendation engine, natural language generation, and analytics. And what we mean by that is that when we look at the insights that are achievable from data, to gain those insights, you would apply machine learning forms of techniques. And machine learning forms of techniques would be different types of algorithms as it pertains to machine learning. So whether they be supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised machine learning algorithms. And an example would be clustering algorithms, which could be possibly support vector machines. And at some juncture, depending upon the level of complexity of the data and the types of insights that are achievable, deep learning in certain instances may be required, where deep learning and examples of deep learning could be a CNN or an RNN type of deep learning neural network. What's under the hood, if you will, for augmented intelligence? Well, under the hood, we assess the data by identifying its quality, classifying the attributes, determining characteristics. All of this would be achievable through a set of tools, utilities, etc., to help to automate the cleansing, the quality detection, any sort of data transformation that would be required. It is required to perform these types of activities and transactions on data so that at the end of the day, you are actually receiving insights. And what we mean by insights is it's a generation of generating, if you will, a natural language, a language where a human is able to interpret what is it that the data is actually telling you. When we look left to right and top down, the sources of data may vary. It could be a database, it could be flat files, files in a CSV format, any possible forms of charts, so whether which could be any sort of a BI intelligence tool. From source, if you will, to destination, that data is then extracted. It's extracted in the form of quality detection, data transformations being applied to the data. All of these types of activities are conducted, if you will, to stage the data. But these activities are automated using specifically the types of machine learning algorithms that we've previously mentioned. From that stage, that's where now insights we're getting closer, if you will, to insights. We're getting closer to insights that once those algorithms are applied, there is a natural language then that's applied in conjunction with that machine learning set of algorithms so that commentaries are generated. And at the end of the day, it would be narratives that could then be consumed through dashboards or charts. Augmented intelligence, what we see here from bottom up, based on the type of data, appears to give the greatest, if you will, business value. So whether you have structured data, whether it's semi-structured data, whether it's unstructured data, augmented intelligence is actually giving you the greatest value by giving you the insights that are necessary, but giving you those insights in an automated way. And that automated way is through natural language generation, where it focuses on reasoning, it applies cognitive capabilities, and all of these are with the intention of deriving insights. Sample set of use cases, if you will, for augmented intelligence. It does apply and it assists significantly in many industries, such as financial services, marketing, etc. And it generates these narratives by revealing the stories that are hidden in the data itself. And by achieving this, you're able to now enable a faster decision making. So whether it's for customer churn or product development, you're able to achieve the greatest level of insights. Through this create, analyze, predict, if you will, would be various stages and various benefits that would be received. The impact that augmented intelligence, if you will, would be providing, and through this natural language generation, you're able to achieve your insights anywhere from weeks, if you will, to minutes, to seconds, and it all depends, again, upon the type of data, the quality of data, the complexity of data that you have based on the data sources that you're actually consuming. With this significant reduction in time and the impact that we're referring to, this significantly automates a lot of the activities that someone would be conducting manually. Here's just a sampling. When we look at and do a compare and contrast between a conventional approach and using augmented analytics. And obviously this may vary depending upon industry, depending upon the complexity of your data. And when we were referring to complexity of data, it could be that data, there could be missing values in data. The quality of data may not exactly be in accordance with what you had originally intended or expected, meaning that there may be some cleanup that may be required for data. And typically, these types of activities, there are some form of ETL processing, if you will, that's being conducted, and all of these types of activities take time. But that's your conventional approach. Using machine learning algorithms and integrating them with your ETL or ELP types of processes for data, where you're staging the data, this is what we mean by augmented intelligence. And the analytics then that are derived from that is that, as we can see, through this form of automation, there's a significant amount of savings, cost savings, as well as accelerating the time that it takes for someone to complete this, and the insights that you're able to receive. And then again, at the end of the day, it's faster decision making. A few of our success stories, if you will.
Thanks, Sanjay. So, for one of our clients in the financial services industry, we help the client build an augmented intelligence application. So the augmented intelligence application helps the client to analyze stocks based on both qualitative parameters like leadership change, what is their competitive intelligence over other competitors, and as well as quantitative parameters like how is their financial performance or quarterly results, and then provide recommendations to analysts on which stocks they should be considering for investment. So using this augmented intelligence application, okay, the client was able to consider 4 times more the stocks they were able to consider using conventional approach, and there was considerable amount of savings in terms of analyst productivity, and also the research timelines for a particular stock or equity was reduced from which was taking previously weeks and months to days. Then another interesting use case was for one of our clients who was into retail. So they were experiencing a lot of order cancellations, and which was a kind of resulting in leakage of revenues. So using automated machine learning, we built a machine learning model to predict orders which are most likely to get cancelled. So this approach helped the client to reduce machine learning deployments from 6 to 8 weeks to a single day, and the client was able to achieve around 91% accuracy, and they were able to reduce cancellations also by 8%, and leading to savings in terms of millions of dollars.
Thank you, Senthil, for providing the insights, if you will, for the success stories. Some of the best practices to be able to achieve augmented intelligence, they primarily focus on identifying use cases, then quantifying their benefits. Upon quantifying their benefits, identifying your use cases, that's at that juncture is when you would go about piloting really more of an MVP. And this is to really be proving out your original hypothesis as it pertains to what is it that you were expecting to identify from the use cases, quantifying your benefits. You would apply Agile best practices. And the expectations here is that this would be, if you will, to achieve that faster time of insights, you're employing these Agile technologies to be able to enable that. And at the end of the day, it really does come down to picking the right set of use cases, which would be the most critical component as it pertains to your success for augmented intelligence. So at this juncture, we'd like to transition to the Q&A. And as we transition to Q&A, we'd like to receive some insights, if you will, from the attendees in the form of a poll. And I'm sure we'll be going to our set of questions in opening up for questions in just a moment. Okay, and as we await the poll, I think we would start opening up for our line of questions. Okay, very good. As we can see from our poll, just in terms of most of our attendees are looking at evaluating, they're investigating. Very good. Okay. And in terms of organizations' greatest challenges, would welcome the insights, inputs from our attendees. appreciate everyone's patience as we do a quick poll. We have, and actually the results of the polls, they do reflect many of the experiences that we've observed in industry ourselves. So at this time, why don't we transition into our Q&A? We do appreciate everyone joining this webinar. We hope you have enjoyed this webinar. And obviously, for any questions that we're unable to answer in this time, because we are approaching, if you will, towards the bottom of the hour, any questions that we're unable to attend to, we will definitely address those questions offline. And please, feel free to reach out to us, send us any sort of questions or inquiries. We'd be more than happy to provide suggestions and share our experiences. Okay. I think we have a few set of questions here. So let's get to So we have a question in terms of how to gauge if the data is sufficient or if it's statistically significant enough for ML consideration. Very good question. Senthil, if you'd like to address that.
Okay. So again, this depends on use case to use case. Statistically significant, say for example, usually what we see is when it comes to something like financial data, you won't have much records, either because they will be in a quarterly basis or they will be on an annual basis. Okay, so but if you take marketing, okay, you will have a lot of data with respect to customers, campaigns, etc. So, but ultimately, what happens is, okay, when it comes to statistically significant, most of the time it is about the pattern within the data, okay, which can tell whether there is significant patterns or not, and not usually on the amount or the quantity of data.
And if I may expand upon that, in terms of gaining the automated insights, if you will, and generating natural language, some form of natural language generation, we were talking about the data. So the quality of data, the quality of your data, the complexity of your data does obviously then take into consideration and needs to be statistically sampled. So that statistical sampling would follow various types of distributions where you're applying statistical modeling to the data. All of that is what is under the hood when we speak about being able to generate the natural language itself. It's a part of, if you will, natural language processing, applying machine learning, classifying your data, categorizing it, cleaning it, and there is statistical sampling that is done during that process. And during that process, when the data is statistically sampled, if you will, that is when subsequently we would apply a clustering algorithm, classify the data in different types of clusters, apply something such as a support vector machines, train, and then go through and build the various machine learning models in a train, test, and validate mode. After that stage, and these things that I've just described are automated, if you will, and that is the embodiment of the engine that we would constitute as a machine natural language generation. Is that from there, you apply natural language processing, you then define rules, if you will, associated with different types of language constructs, and then at the end of the day, it actually generates a narrative, and that narrative is what's giving you the insights associated with your data. I believe we will be almost out of time. If there are And obviously, the information that we have presented today, and I believe there are a few questions from many of our attendees. This information will be available. The material that we have reviewed today will be shared for everyone. And just one more point, a suggestion to all. We would appreciate if our attendees could take a very short survey. It will pop up towards the end of this session. It takes about a minute or less to complete. We do, again, thank you for your time, value your time, appreciate the form of questions that have been given. And again, please feel free to reach out to us, send us your inquiries. We would be happy to share some of the experiences and some of our insights. Thank you again for joining, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.